Okay, so in general, the system is not integrated, so the manufacturer and the retailer are somewhat making their own decisions by themselves. Now, the manufacturer really need to offer some contracts to the retailer. In this video, we talk about rebate contracts and what will be the equilibrium outcome of rebate contracts. So we will assume that the manufacturer will choose to offer a rebate contract. Under this choice, how should the manufacturer optimally design his offer? He will in general have two options, either to offer a contract so that the retailer will choose to forecast, or to offer a contract so that the retailer will find it's better not to do forecasting. Okay, so the manufacturer knows that there are two possible outcomes. So we will first find the optimal outcome, optimal contracts in either case, and then we will make comparisons to really obtain the manufacturer's optimal contract design strategy. In any equilibrium, the retailer will accept a contract. Why? Because the manufacturer always has the chance to decrease T, the fixed payment, so that the retailer is willing to accept the contract. If the retailer does not accept the contract, the manufacturer will earn nothing. So in equilibrium, the retailer will be induced to accept at least one contract. Then we will denote this outcome as a function RR of SC. Small r means this is under rebate contract. Capital R means this is the retailer's expected profit. S is a signal, either H or L or N. N means no forecasting. And C is a contract, which means that the retailer chooses either Q1 RN TN or QH RH TH or QL RL TL. Okay, so S is the retailer's type, and C is the retailer's choice. In either case, the retailer is going to face a random demand with his choice of quantities. With this expected sales, the retailer may earn retail sales revenue and the rebate bonus, but the retailer needs to pay TC as the payment to the manufacturer. Okay, in any case, this is the retailer's profit function. Suppose the manufacturer wants to drive the retailer not to do forecasting. In this case, as we mentioned, the manufacturer will only offer a single contract, which is denoted as QN, RN, and TN. Okay. Now, among all the rebate contracts that induce no forecasting, we want to know which one is optimal. Okay, which one is optimal? The good thing here is that because the retailer does not do forecasting, so there is no information asymmetry, then the only thing that the manufacturer need to worry about is that looking at this offer, it cannot be beneficial for the retailer to do forecasting. Okay, so we will see how to do this. Suppose the retailer accepts this offer and does not do forecasting. The retailer is going to earn RR of NN. Okay, here NN means the retailer's type is N. Okay, no forecasting because the retailer does not forecast. And also the retailer choose the contract with no intended for the one who do not forecast. So we know that we will see this particular expected function, expected demand. Okay, with your type, the retailer will believe that the demand is simply DN, and with the choice of contracts, the retailer need to take RN, Q1, and TN into its profit function. However, this is just one choice, right? The retailer may still choose to forecast, and then that forecast result can help her accept or reject the offer based on the signal. So if she forecasts, then the retailer will do the following. With probability lambda, the retailer will see a high demand. So that means the retailer's type will become type H. The retailer will see this as the expected profit. Okay? Or with probability 1 minus lambda, the retailer will see a low demand. So the retailer's type becomes L. In either case, the retailer has the option to accept or reject the contract. To accept or to reject the contract. For example, if the retailer sees that the demand is very bad, then the retailer has the option not to select this offer, because that offer may give the retailer a negative profit. Okay, so with lambda and 1 minus lambda as the weight, this part is the expected profit. Then we minus k from them is the expected net profit as the retailer's earning under this contract with forecasting. Okay, so obviously the retailer has this option or that option. The retailer will choose the one that is largest. So the manufacturer's problem would be that the manufacturer need to make sure that the retailer will be willing to become an N-type retailer. This no forecasting result should be better than do forecasting if the manufacturer wants to induce no forecasting. Okay, so this is some kind of IC constraints, though here this IC constraint is required because we have moral hazard problem. We need to use this constraint to drive the retailer's behavior, to drive the retailer's action, instead of private information. I should say instead of having hidden information. Also, we need IR constraints. We need to make sure that the retailer is willing to accept this offer. If this offer is really accepted, then the manufacturer's earning is that the manufacturer gets this payment. The manufacturer pays the production cost, and in expectation, the manufacturer need to pay some amount as the rebate bonus. Okay, so we can see that by designing these three numbers, the manufacturer need to offer incentives for the retailer not to do forecasting. The incentive issue is always there. Okay, we have some technical assumptions. In problems like this, typically we may have some sign constraints on different variables. But for transfer, typically we assume it to be real numbers. And that means we don't restrict whether it's from the manufacturer to the retailer or from the retailer to the manufacturer. Either one may pay. But anyway, it's not very important. So for the previous problem, if we do a careful analysis, we will be able to solve that problem by finding the optimal rebate contract, like this. The optimal rebate contract has three numbers, and depending on the different values of the forecasting cost, we have different optimal contracts. Okay, here the gamma function is defined as blah 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 or something like this. We can tell you that gamma is an increasing function in Q. Okay, when Q goes up, your gamma will goes up, and also that means the gamma function and the inverse gamma function will be well defined. Here this should be gamma. Okay, here we don't want to talk too much about the gamma function. Basically, it simply tells you that the optimal contract depends on K, And also, even though the contract is very ugly, but it can be found, okay? Analytically, it can be found. What we care more is the property of this optimal rebate contract. So the first thing I want to tell you is that here, for different values of k, we have different, let's focus on quantity. We have two thresholds. The first one is this one. Okay, the second one is a larger one. Okay, when k is lower than the lower threshold, our optimal quantity is a fixed number. When k is greater than the upper threshold, our quantity will be another fixed number. Here, this is the pessimistic system optimal quantity. That's the production quantity when we think the demand is bad. This is the quantity when we has no idea about whether the demand is high or low. So obviously, the second one is higher. Okay, the second one is higher. Now, we have something here. And we know the gamma function is increasing in Q. So that means, okay, I forgot to tell you the y-axis is Q. So that means when Q goes up, your gamma value should also go up. So that's going to give you something like this. Okay? So we can say that when the forecasting cost increase, then basically the optimal order quantity or the quantity that we offer should also increase. When K goes up, Qn star should also goes up. That's something we can find. Okay? We need some explanations and intuitions about this. So let's try to do that. Okay, so the first thing we want to discuss is that there's no rebate that should be offered. Okay, in the optimal setting, there's no rebate. This is somewhat very obvious. As a manufacturer, I want to induce no forecasting. As long as I give a positive number to the rebate bonus, the retailer will get more incentive to do forecasting. And I am giving myself a hard time. So if I want that guy not to do forecasting, I should offer no rebate. Okay, so that's reasonable. Then is another thing that we find is about Q is increasing in K. As we mentioned in the previous slides, Q is increasing in K. Why? When K is large, it is easy to induce no forecasting. Because the retailer knows that the forecasting cost is very high. So the retailer itself has no strong incentive to do forecasting. So it would be easy to design a contract that induces no forecasting. When the manufacturer can implement the efficient quantity, that's going to happen when K is really large. Okay, that's going to happen when K is really large. Okay, please note that this is the system optimal order quantity when K is large enough. Why? We say this system is decentralized. Okay, this system is decentralized. But if the manufacturer wants the retailer not to forecast, and the retailer himself also wants not to do forecast because the cost is so large, if K is large enough, then there is no incentive misalignment between these two players because both of them prefer no forecasting. Okay, then we can achieve system optimality because there is no incentive misalignment, there is no private information, there is really nothing that we need to worry about. So we can implement the efficient quantity and the retailer will be willing to accept that. If K is somewhat moderate within this region, then it's still not very hard to induce forecasting. But now, as the manufacturer need to reduce the quantity. Why? K is moderate, so somehow the retailer has some incentive to do forecasting. If you offer the retailer a very high quantity, then accepting that offer would be risky. Okay? And then the retailer will need a precise information about demand so that she will be able to make decision about acceptance or rejection. So when K is moderate, you need to cut down the quantity you offered to the retailer. When K is moderate, you need to cut down the quantity you offered so that you decrease the incentive for the retailer to do forecasting. Finally, if K is really so small, okay, smaller than the lower threshold, then from the manufacturer's perspective, it would be very hard to induce no forecasting because the forecasting is so cheap. It would be very hard for the manufacturer to prevent the retailer from being forecasting. Okay, so in this case, the manufacturer will need to leave some positive rents to the retailer by reducing T. So we can see that at here, the manufacturer has this term. This term is subtracted from the news vendor profit, the news vendor revenue term. So this means the manufacturer need to give the retailer some positive rents so that the retailer does not forecast. So it's very interesting to see that the retailer can earn some money when K is very small. Does that make sense? Basically, yes. Because if K is small, that means the retailer is stronger in making a forecasting because that is cheaper. Okay? So when the retailer is stronger, the retailer can basically earn more. So that's not very surprising. What's interesting is that the retailer may earn a positive rent even though the retailer does not have private information. This is because the retailer has the threat of getting private information. So the retailer does not need to really get private information. As long as the retailer can have the threat of getting private information, the retailer can earn some rents. Whether the threat is strong depends on K. When K is large, even though the retailer has that option, we know the threat is very weak. So the manufacturer can be very mean to the retailer. But when K is small, then the threat is very strong or credible. The manufacturer needs to be generous to the retailer so that the retailer does not really try to get the private information. Okay? So finally, we may verify that the manufacturer's expected profit increased in K, and this is obviously intuitive. I require myself to induce the retailer not to do forecasting. Okay? That can be done more easily if K is large. So when K is large, I am in a better situation. I can earn more money in expectation. Okay, so that's the end of the analysis of rebate contracts when the manufacturer wants to induce no forecasting. In the next video, we will talk about the outcome of inducing forecasting and do a comparison. Thank you.